For your sister's birthday, 75 guests are coming. Serve them or leave, my mom said, her voice as calm as if she were telling me the weather. They'll be staying for a month. Stay with me till the end, because what happened after that day changed everything I ever believed about family, love, and revenge. I just stood there, frozen, holding a dish towel in my hand. I thought I had misheard her. 75 guests? For a month? Our house wasn't even big enough for half that number. But my mom, Evelyn Ward, had that tone in her voice, the one that meant there was no discussion. She stood by the kitchen counter, folding napkins as if she hadn't just dropped a bomb on my life. My younger sister, Savannah, leaned against the fridge with a grin on her face. She had just come back from Los Angeles, where she claimed she was working on her music career. Everyone in town treated her like some kind of star. My mother worshipped her. I, on the other hand, was the one who stayed. After Dad passed away 3 years ago, I gave up my own plans, my own dreams, just to help Mom keep things together. But nothing I did was ever enough. I was always the ungrateful one, the lazy one, the unmarried one. And Savannah? She could do no wrong. Mom, that's impossible, I said, trying to stay calm. Where are 75 people even going to sleep? She didn't even look up. You'll figure it out. You're good at arranging things. Savannah giggled, flipping her perfect blonde hair. It'll be fun, Lena. Like a family reunion. I wanted to scream. Fun. I'd be the one scrubbing dishes and mopping floors while everyone toasted to Savannah's success. I felt something tighten inside me, that quiet anger that had been building for years. I had always swallowed it, always tried to keep peace. But this time it felt different. This time, something in me whispered that maybe peace wasn't worth it anymore. That night, I sat on the porch alone, listening to the crickets. The warm Tennessee air wrapped around me, thick and heavy, but I felt cold. I looked through the window and saw Mom and Savannah laughing together, planning the grand celebration. It was like I was invisible in my own home. I told myself I could survive it. Just one more month, then maybe I'd finally leave this house for good. But deep down, another thought started to form, small, quiet, but powerful. What if I didn't just survive it? What if I made them regret every single time they treated me like I was nothing? I didn't know it yet, but that was the night my plan began. The night I stopped being their servant and started becoming their lesson. The next morning, the house turned into something out of a nightmare. Cars started pulling up before sunrise, doors slammed, and laughter echoed through the walls. Within hours, every corner of the house was filled. Aunts gossiping in the living room, cousins running wild through the hallways, and uncles dragging coolers of beer into the backyard. Mom stood in the center of it all like a queen, giving orders. Lena, take their bags to the guest room. Lena, set the table. Lena, make more coffee. It was like my name only existed for commands. Savannah, of course, didn't lift a finger. She floated around in a silk robe, hugging relatives, accepting compliments about how beautiful she looked. Everyone adored her. By noon, I had washed dishes 3 times, changed sheets for people I barely remembered, and carried trays of food back and forth until my arms ached. When I sat down for a minute, Mom's voice cut through the noise. Lazy again, Lena? Maybe if you had Savannah's energy, you'd have a husband by now. The room chuckled. I felt my face burn. Savannah smirked at me from across the table, twirling her hair like a movie star. I wanted to disappear. Instead, I stood up, forcing a smile, and went back to the kitchen. I told myself not to cry, not in front of them. That evening, Uncle Ray arrived. He was one of the few relatives who ever treated me kindly. His eyes followed me as I carried a tray of plates into the dining room. When everyone else was too busy eating to notice, he stopped me and whispered, "You don't have to take this, Lena. Don't let them bury you under their comfort." His words stayed in my head all night. But I couldn't see a way out. Every room was taken, every bed full. Mom decided that since Savannah needed privacy, she'd get the master bedroom. I was told to move my things to the laundry room. Just for the month, Mom said, like she was doing me a favor. I lay there that night on a thin mattress beside the dryer, listening to the laughter upstairs. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Savannah's smile and heard Mom's voice calling me ungrateful. Something inside me started to harden. I picked up an old notebook from the shelf and began writing everything down. Every insult, every chore, every humiliation. It wasn't a diary. It was evidence. Not for social media, not for pity. For me. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. They would not forget this month, and they would never treat me like a ghost again. Each word I wrote in that notebook was a promise, a quiet, dangerous one. The kind that grows stronger in silence. I was cleaning the kitchen again when I found it. It was early morning, and the air smelled like coffee and detergent. Everyone was still asleep, and for once, the house was quiet. I pulled out the silverware drawer to wipe underneath, and something slid out from the back. A small, folded envelope covered in dust. My first thought was that it was another old recipe Mom had forgotten about. But then I saw the handwriting. My father's. My chest tightened. I hadn't seen his handwriting in years. Just 3 words were written on the front. For my family. My hands shook as I sat down at the table, staring at it. I don't know how long I sat there before opening it. Inside was a single-page letter and a document clipped behind it. "If you're reading this, I'm already gone," it began. I bit my lip, holding back tears. His voice came alive in my mind, calm and gentle, like the way he used to read bedtime stories to me when I was little. He wrote about how much he loved us, how proud he was of both his daughters. Then came the part that made my stomach twist, the part about the house. He said it was his wish that the property be split equally between Savannah and me. Half each. He trusted Mom to handle it fairly, to keep peace between us. He believed in her. He trusted her more than anyone. But she never told me. She took everything, the house, the control, the authority, and turned it into her weapon. She'd spent years making me believe I didn't belong here, that I was just a burden she had to tolerate. And all this time, half of this house, the one she made me scrub and clean every day, was supposed to be mine. I pressed the letter to my chest, my heart pounding. It felt like Dad was there in that room with me, whispering that I wasn't powerless. I could almost hear him say, "Don't let anyone take what's yours, Lena." I folded the letter carefully, slipping it back into the envelope. I didn't tell anyone. Not Mom. Not Savannah. Not even Uncle Ray. Not yet. This wasn't something to be shouted about. This was something to be used. Quietly. Smartly. I walked upstairs, past the rooms filled with snoring guests and Savannah's laughter. I looked at the walls Dad built, the pictures he hung. My mother thought she owned this place. But she didn't. Not anymore. I hid the envelope inside my notebook, the same one where I wrote every insult, every humiliation, every time she made me feel small. Now it held something stronger, proof. That morning, I smiled when Mom called my name. A real smile would have looked strange, but a polite one? That was easy. She had no idea that the daughter she called useless had just found the one thing that could destroy her. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. The air was thick and quiet, the kind of silence that comes before a storm. I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself, dark circles under my eyes, hair tied in a messy knot. But behind the exhaustion, there was something new. Calm. Control. I decided that from this day on, I would be the daughter my mother always wanted. At least, that's what she would think. When Mom came downstairs, already giving orders, I didn't argue. I smiled. "Sure, Mom. I'll take care of it." She paused for a second, surprised by my tone. Usually, I would sigh or roll my eyes, but this time I didn't. I folded the napkins neatly and hummed while I worked. She tilted her head and said softly, "Maybe you're finally learning, Lena." "I guess I am," I replied, still smiling. For the next few days, I played my role perfectly. I cooked without complaint, cleaned with a cheerful hum, and laughed at Savannah's fake stories about life in Los Angeles. I even joined her in serving drinks to guests, pretending I didn't notice her smug grin. The whole house began to believe my act. Mom bragged to the relatives about how Lena's finally changing, and how a mother's discipline always works in the end. At night, while everyone slept, I sat quietly in the kitchen with my father's letter. I reread every word, letting his calm voice fill me with purpose. Then I opened my notebook and began listing everything I needed to do, discreetly, smartly. I started reorganizing the household accounts, pretending it was part of my new responsible self. When Mom handed me grocery receipts or asked me to track the food budget, I made copies and kept them hidden. Every detail mattered. Between chores, I spent time on my phone, researching inheritance laws and property rights in Tennessee. The more I read, the clearer the path became. Mom's decision to hide Dad's will wasn't just cruel, it was illegal. She had no idea that her lazy daughter was now 3 steps ahead of her. Then came Harold. He was a family friend and Dad's old lawyer, invited to Savannah's upcoming birthday celebration. The first time I spoke to him, it was about something simple, taxes. "I'm trying to be better with money," I said with an innocent laugh. Planning for the future. He smiled kindly. That's a smart thing to do, Lena. Your father always said you were the practical one. We talked for a few minutes, but that was all I needed. Over the next week, I found excuses to run into him again, at breakfast, in the garden after dinner. Each time, I asked harmless questions about property, inheritance, and ownership, always pretending it was just curiosity. By the time the birthday week arrived, my mother believed she'd finally tamed me. She didn't see the truth behind my calm smile, that every yes, Mom, and every obedient gesture was just another step in my quiet plan to take back everything she stole. The morning of Savannah's birthday began before sunrise. The kitchen was already alive with noise, boiling pots, sizzling pans, and the sharp chop of a knife. Lena's apron was stained with oil and sweat, but she kept going. Her mother, Evelyn, had given her a list of dishes long enough to feed an army. Roasted lamb, garlic shrimp, fruit platters, 5 different desserts. Make sure everything's perfect, Evelyn had ordered. This isn't just a birthday, it's a celebration of Savannah's success. By noon, the house transformed into a palace. Glittering decorations hung from the ceiling, and a string quartet played softly in the background. Savannah descended the staircase in a gold gown, every eye turning toward her. The guests clapped, and Evelyn's smile stretched wide with pride. Lena stood behind the kitchen door, holding a tray of appetizers, unseen and unacknowledged. The next 14 hours were a blur of movement, serving, cleaning, fetching drinks, replacing plates. Guests complimented the food, Evelyn took the credit, and Savannah soaked in the praise like sunlight. Lena's back ached, her feet were numb, but she kept smiling because that's what was expected. When the evening reached its peak, Evelyn took the microphone. Tonight, she began, her voice trembling with pride, we celebrate my daughter, Savannah, the light of our family. She has made us proud in every way. The crowd cheered, glasses clinked, and Savannah smiled like a queen receiving her crown. Lena stood at the edge of the kitchen, grease smeared across her cheek, her hands still smelling of onions and soap. She waited, foolishly hoping for a mention, even a glance. But Evelyn's words flowed like honey, sweet and selective. Savannah, glowing under the lights, didn't even look toward the kitchen. When it was time for the toast, Savannah lifted her glass. To my amazing mom, she said, and to everyone who made this night special. Her eyes swept across the room, skipping right over her sister. The guests applauded again, and Lena felt something inside her chest crack. After midnight, when the laughter died and the guests began to leave, Lena stayed behind to clean. She picked up empty glasses, wiped sauce off the floor, and stacked plates into neat towers. Her hands shook with exhaustion. From the living room came the sound of Savannah's laughter, bright, careless, echoing. When the house finally fell silent, Lena stepped outside. The cool air hit her face, carrying the faint scent of smoke from the candles. She sat on the back steps, her body heavy but her mind burning. Through the window, she could still see her mother hugging Savannah, whispering something that made them both smile. Lena looked up at the stars and whispered to herself, "Enough." Her voice was low, steady, almost frightening. For the first time, she felt her own power. Tomorrow, she wouldn't be the shadow in the kitchen. Tomorrow, they'd learn what it felt like to be invisible. The morning after the birthday feast, Lena felt a strange mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She brewed coffee quietly in the kitchen, waiting for a moment when the house was empty enough to make a call. She dialed Harold's number, her hands shaking slightly, though her voice was steady. "Harold, it's Lena," she said, keeping her tone casual. "I need to talk to you about something important, something private." He listened, patient and calm. When she explained that she had found her father's letter and the hidden will, there was a pause on the other end of the line. "Are you sure about this, Lena?" Harold asked. "I've read it," she said firmly. "I need to know the truth, and I need your help." Quietly. No one else can know. By the end of the call, Harold had confirmed what Lena suspected. The will was legitimate. Evelyn had deliberately hidden it, which made her actions illegal. That realization sent a thrill through Lena. She had proof, and she had an ally. Harold agreed to help her transfer ownership of the house to reflect her father's wishes, discreetly, without alerting her mother. Meanwhile, Lena returned to her daily role in the house, but her actions began to change subtly. She moved strategically, causing small disruptions that would annoy the guests without drawing attention to herself. She misplaced cutlery, forgot to restock essentials in the bathrooms, and somehow managed to turn off the air conditioning at the exact moments when the house was most crowded. Chaos started creeping in. Aunts complained about missing towels, cousins argued over snacks, and drinks spilled onto tablecloths. Guests murmured about the discomfort, whispering about how the arrangements weren't as perfect as Mom promised. Evelyn tried to maintain control, snapping at everyone in her sharp, commanding voice. "Lena, did you take the drinks upstairs? I told you to keep them stocked." "I thought the fridge had plenty," Lena replied innocently, raising her hands in a helpless gesture. Mom's frustration boiled, but legally, she couldn't touch me. Harold's instructions had been clear. The property was now in Lena's name, at least half of it, and Evelyn had no authority to evict or punish her. Every small act of inconvenience was deliberate. Lena watched from the corners, smiling quietly as the house descended into disarray. She felt a thrill in the quiet victories. No one suspected that the girl they had treated like a servant was orchestrating the disruptions. Every lost utensil, every broken air conditioning fuse, was a tiny step toward her ultimate goal. That night, as Lena climbed the stairs to the laundry room, she looked around at the chaos she had created. The guests were frustrated, Mom was furious, and Savannah was confused and flustered. Lena's lips curled into a small, satisfied smile. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was taking control, quietly, patiently, and with purpose. The house, which had once been her prison, was slowly becoming her stage. The house was tense that evening, more than it had ever been. Guests whispered behind hands, moving nervously from room to room. Aunts argued over seating arrangements, cousins complained about missing desserts, and uncles grumbled about the air conditioning. No one could figure out why everything seemed off, and Evelyn's usual calm authority was cracking under the pressure. Dinner was supposed to be the grand finale. Roast chicken, mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, and all the dishes Lena had prepared herself. Hours of work that went unnoticed. But the chaos had carried over to the table. Plates clattered, drinks spilled, and voices rose. Evelyn barked orders, but no one listened. Her face, usually composed and proud, had a tense flush. That's when Harold arrived. He wasn't expected. The sound of the front door opening made everyone pause. He walked in calmly, briefcase in hand, and all eyes turned to him. Lena felt a quiet thrill in her chest. She had orchestrated this carefully, and now it was time. "Evening," Harold said politely, setting his briefcase on the table. "I have something that needs to be addressed immediately." Evelyn's brow furrowed. "Harold, what is this about?" He opened the briefcase and pulled out official documents. "This is the corrected property deed for this house," he announced, his voice steady. He handed them across the table. "It confirms Lena Ward as co-owner, just as your late husband intended." The room went silent. A glass clinked to the floor, unnoticed. Evelyn's face went pale, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. What is this?" she stammered. Savannah's reaction was immediate. She jumped to her feet, pointing at Lena. You snake! You've been plotting behind my back this whole time." Her voice cracked with anger and disbelief. Lena stood calmly, letting the silence stretch. She finally spoke, her voice steady, almost cold. "I just read Dad's words. You hid them." Every eye in the room was on Evelyn. Her hands shook as she tried to reach for the papers, to explain, to argue. But the legal truth was undeniable. Harold's presence made sure of that. The power she had wielded over the family for years crumbled in an instant. Guests whispered and shifted in their seats. Some looked at Evelyn with pity, others with shock. Savannah's face was red, tears threatening, her bravado stripped away. Lena remained calm, her eyes steady on her mother, her lips a thin line. She didn't need to yell, didn't need to argue. She didn't have to do anything but stand there. For the first time, Evelyn didn't control the room. She didn't control me. And I didn't flinch. The silence was heavy, charged, and complete. And in that moment, Lena understood that every insult, every long year of servitude, had led to this exact second. The moment she could finally claim her place. The moment she could finally be seen. The moment justice, quiet and unrelenting, had arrived. The morning after the exposure, the house felt different, quieter, tense, heavy. Guests tiptoed through the hallways, unsure what to say or do, and Evelyn barely met anyone's eyes. Lena had planned this carefully, and now it was time to deliver the final blow. She found her mother in the living room, sipping her morning coffee, trying to act as if nothing had changed. Lena held a crisp envelope in her hand, her fingers steady. She didn't hesitate, didn't raise her voice. She walked across the room and placed it gently on the coffee table. "This is your notice to vacate the house," she said calmly. Evelyn looked up, blinking, and then laughed, a sharp, incredulous sound. A notice? Are you serious? You think I'll leave? What is this, some kind of joke? I'm serious, Lena replied evenly. Harold prepared it. Everything is legal. It's time. Evelyn scoffed, rolling her eyes, but her usual confidence faltered. She didn't storm out, didn't shout. She just stared at the paper, her fingers trembling as she picked it up again. The house, which she had ruled with authority for so many years, suddenly felt smaller, like walls were closing in. Over the next few days, word spread quietly to the guests. Most relatives didn't want to be caught in the legal mess and began leaving one by one, packing their things and offering awkward excuses about early flights or urgent appointments. Savannah, however, stayed fuming. She found Lena in the kitchen one evening, arms crossed, and her voice was sharp with accusation. Heartless, she spat. You're cruel. How can you just toss Mom out like this? Lena didn't flinch. She met Savannah's gaze, her expression calm, almost serene. I learned from the best, she said softly, letting the weight of the words sink in. That night, Lena walked through the empty rooms, past the silent dining room and the bare guest bedrooms. She could still see the remnants of the parties, the decorations, the food, the laughter that had been so exhausting. She remembered all the hours she had spent cleaning, cooking, and serving, years of quiet labor that had gone unnoticed. And now, she was the one holding the power. Yet, even as she felt the satisfaction of finally taking control, there was a hollow ache in her chest. Empowered, yes, but emotionally drained. Watching her mother crumble was brutal in a way she hadn't expected. Evelyn, once a towering presence, now looked small and fragile, her mask completely gone. Lena sat on the back steps, looking at the quiet yard, the lights still twinkling from the previous night. She had fought, planned, and executed every move, but the emptiness that followed was sharp. It was the cost of standing up, of claiming her place, of seeing her mother reduced to nothing in front of the family. Still, deep down, she knew it was necessary. She had survived, endured, and finally, she had reclaimed what was hers. And though the victory felt strange and heavy, it was hers. No one could take it away. The house was silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, almost alive. For years, it had been filled with noise, laughter, shouting, footsteps, plates clattering, and the endless chatter of relatives who never noticed her. But now it was empty. The echoes of chaos had vanished, leaving only the quiet hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Lena walked slowly through the halls, her hands brushing against the walls as she remembered. She remembered scrubbing every corner until her fingers cracked, carrying heavy trays across the living room, and refilling glasses for guests who never once thanked her. She remembered the way her mother's eyes would flash with pride at Savannah and disdain at her. Every memory was a thread of the past she had endured, and now she walked through it as the owner of it all. The bedrooms felt different too. Savannah's former master suite, once a symbol of her sister's golden status, now just a room. Lena paused in front of the window and let the late afternoon sun fall across her face. The space felt hers, though the weight of the struggle lingered. A knock at the door startled her. Harold stepped inside, briefcase in hand, the familiar calmness in his demeanor. Lena, he said, closing the door behind him. Everything is finalized. Legally, the house is yours. You did the right thing. Thank you, Harold, she said softly, though the words didn't quite carry the relief she felt. He gave a small nod and placed the papers on the table. They were official, undeniable, and clean. All the work, all the waiting, had finally resulted in a victory. But even as she looked at the documents, Lena felt something she hadn't anticipated, a tightness in her chest. The house was hers, yes. Evelyn's control was gone, Savannah humbled and justice served. Yet it didn't feel like peace. The triumph was sharp, cold, and lonely. Her father's absence was a void she couldn't fill, and the years of silent suffering left traces that even victory couldn't erase. Harold left after a few minutes, leaving Lena alone with the house. She wandered back to the living room, her fingers brushing over the furniture, the floors, the walls she had cleaned countless times. Her eyes fell on the envelope that had started it all, her father's letter. She carefully placed it in a frame she had kept ready for weeks. She hung it on the wall where anyone entering would see it, a quiet tribute to him, a warning to anyone who might try to take what wasn't theirs. Sitting on the couch, Lena let the tears come. She didn't fight them. They were a release, a mixture of relief, grief, and the strange emptiness that accompanies a long-fought battle. Revenge had brought justice, Yes, but not happiness. Not yet. As she looked around the silent house, she realized something important. This was her life now. Her home, her rules, her control. And though the price of claiming it had been high, she had survived. She had won. And for the first time in years, she could breathe. Even if the quiet still felt heavy with memory. Weeks passed, and the house settled into a calm rhythm it hadn't known in years. Lena spent her mornings tending to the garden, her afternoons organizing the rooms, and her evenings simply enjoying the quiet. The chaos, the constant noise, the endless demands, all of it had disappeared. It was peaceful, almost surreal, and for the first time, Lena felt fully in control of her life. One late afternoon, a car pulled up the driveway. Lena looked up from the kitchen window and saw Savannah stepping out alone. Her hair was a little disheveled, her designer clothes muted and worn, and the confident smile that once commanded attention was gone. Savannah approached the front door slowly, hesitation in her steps. She rang the bell, and Lena opened the door. "Lena," Savannah began, her voice quiet, unsteady. "Can I stay for a few days? Just until I get things sorted out." She looked genuinely humbled, the arrogance and entitlement that had defined her gone after the scandal and the loss of her friends. Lena studied her sister carefully. Every memory came rushing back. The way Savannah had laughed at her exhaustion during the parties, the insults whispered to friends when Lena wasn't looking, the constant favoritism from Mom. Every cruel word, every careless gesture replayed in her mind like a movie she couldn't pause. A small smile tugged at the corners of Lena's lips, calm but sharp. "For your stay," she said slowly, letting each word sink in. 75 guests are coming. Serve them or leave." Savannah froze, her mouth opening slightly, then closing again. She looked around at the quiet house, the absence of the usual chaos, and then back at Lena. Her voice caught. I didn't mean. You didn't think about anyone but yourself for years," Lena interrupted, her tone gentle but firm. "Now, it's your turn to understand." Savannah's eyes filled with tears, but there were no words left to say. She realized, finally, that her sister had changed. Lena wasn't the girl who would quietly take abuse anymore. She had become someone who stood her ground, who claimed what was rightfully hers. And Savannah, humbled by the consequences of her own behavior, could only stare. Lena closed the door slowly, the click of the latch echoing in the hallway like a final punctuation mark. She leaned against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. Outside, the sun dipped low in the sky, painting the yard in shades of gold and orange. The house was hers, the past behind her, and for the first time in years, Lena felt completely free. She walked through the empty halls, past the quiet rooms, past the framed letter from her father hanging on the wall, and let the stillness wash over her. There were no more demands, no more chaos, no more shadows of control. For the first time, she could simply be herself. And as the door remained closed behind her, the house finally felt like home. Peaceful, hers, and unbreakable. The chapter with her mother and sister had ended, and Lena stepped forward. Free at last. Do you think Lena handled her family the right way by standing up and taking control, or should she have tried to forgive and make peace? Share your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear your opinion. And if you love stories full of twists, family drama, and revenge, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new story.